Probably itching to get started, so we'll do that now. And whether you're going to grow them in a polytunnel or in a greenhouse, in a pot, or in a protected porch, you're going to be starting them off in the same way. I will cover later the pot sizes that you need for January planting. It's exactly the same as a polytunnel, and I'll also cover the ground preparation for the polytunnel later. But for today, let's grab ourselves a cup of tea and our corms and make a start. These are the rose. They were probably my favourite pink last year. They were absolutely killer flowers. This is the rose, and just look at the stems. Absolutely magnificent. Nice bit of sunshine. So I'm just giving the charmello a soak. The corms, they're long and thin compared to something like Barbie, which is kind of short and fat. I suspect though, once they both rehydrate, we won't be able to tell the difference. This is charmello, and I think it just looks magical up against the various shades of porcelain. Going to add another half a packet because I want 15. That's a whole tray's worth of the charmello. The extra 5 you could save till spring for pots. To have either these 9cm pots, just this size as a guide, or I always use these. I love them. 15 cell trays and a nice sturdy seed tray, and I find that this is deep enough for them to last until planting time. These corms are F1 hybrid, which means they've been hand pollinated, which makes them a bit more expensive than those that you can find in a local garden centre. However, the eventual flowers are a world away and really special. So I just wanted to share this with you. So this is our special florist grade ranunculus, and these are the standard ranunculus that you can normally buy in the garden centre. I think I've done quite a good job to actually get them to grow as tall as this. They were in the polytunnel. Normally they come up a lot shorter, but that's the difference. Can you see? It's massive. Once our ranunculus have had their bath, they will then need to be pre-sprouted. Now, you can pre-sprout them in vermiculite. Lots of commercial growers do. However, they are no less stealable once they've been pre-sprouted, and commercial growers will place them into rodent-proof greenhouses. We don't have that option. Check this guy out so you can see he's no longer vulnerable to being stolen, but look how delicate he is, and putting that into the ground without damaging any of his roots would be difficult. This one's had a little bit longer to grow on, but by the time we get to January they will be robust plug plants. So that's the way I prefer to grow. Because anemones and ranunculus are growing through the winter, they need feeding from day one. So you're going to need to plant them somewhere, which is why I plant straight into the 15 cell trays at the very beginning, pre-sprout them into the compost. The nutrients are there waiting for them as soon as they're ready, and they're very, very easy for us to top up with a seaweed solution as and when required. So I've carefully taken them out of the cells, and you can see that they are ready now to move on. The problem you've got is if you leave them in too confined a space, then you affect the overall bloom. So if you try and squeeze too many into a bed or too many into a pot even, the resulting flowers are much smaller because they're competing with each other for the nutrients. So you need to give them 22 centimetres of space no matter where you plant them. There we go, and I'm just putting the soil in around the root bowl, like so. If you're scratching your head and wondering how many you should sow now, you could sow 50% providing you've got adequate cover for the winter. The spring sown ones are never quite as big as the autumn sown ones. They are still wonderful, but they're not quite as big, which is why we like to do the early sowing.
I thought it might be useful to see how tall they are. Now, if yours is not as tall as mine and you've got my corms, it's probably something that happened when you started them. It's a bit like humans. Plants never get over fully a bad start. So the more care that you can give in the very beginning, the better the resulting flowers. And obviously these tip-top varieties. There we go, 2 foot. And that's going to carry on. They carry on growing up as they open. So you can see how much taller this one is now.
If you're growing wholly in pots, then maybe just start with 3. 3 corms in a pot would be a very good practice and give you a lovely display.
This is the ranunculus. And again, I'll use the images in the shop so you can buy with your eyes.
So these are ranunculus corms, which we have just soaked, and they've swollen up beautifully. So the trick now is to plant them and keep them moist so they stay rehydrated. If they stay plump and hydrated, they will start to shoot. And I'm going to show you a video now of a ranunculus corm at 2 weeks old. So there we go. That is 14 days from soaking. Can you see where both the roots and the shoots are coming from the top? So definitely legs down when you're planting them. I shall put him very carefully back in his pot. This here is what you can expect. They'll take about 2 weeks to wake up, and they'll take about 4 weeks before they look like this. Now I'm going to start mine in a 15 cell tray. They are quite big, so you could, if you wanted to, absolutely use a 9 centimetre pot instead. Right, I'm going to start in the middle here just so that you can see. I'm going to create a nice big hole, and the corms need to be planted legs down. Both the roots and the shoots for ranunculus will come from the crown here. So the idea of the compost is they are going to keep these corms hydrated. We need to keep them plump like this so it starts the waking up process. We don't want them sopping wet because then they could rot because they don't have any leaves or any roots to take the water up. We just need to stop them from drying back out, because if they do that, then they will go back into dormancy. And we need to keep them nice and cool, because if the soil temperature in these trays hits over 20 degrees, it will signal to the plant that it's summer and it shouldn't be getting up yet. So don't put them in your centrally heated sitting room. So your trays should be lovely and moist. They should be heavy when you pick them up, but definitely not dripping with water. A shelf like this is ideal because the slats really help with the drainage. Now seed trays have been very cleverly designed, and by putting them on a shelf, I'm making the absolute most of the drainage holes. Now add to that are these lovely seed cells, and you can see that they're going to sit proud on the raised section of this seed tray, improving the drainage once again. And then if I turn these cells over, can you see they've got ridges in them as well? So some cells you might find have only got 2 holes, and they are flush with the bottom surface. Again, that's going to impede drainage if those holes end up getting covered. So when you're choosing your pots and containers, just bear all of this in mind, that if you had a seed tray full of water, would the trays allow the water to escape really rapidly so you don't end up drowning your poor plant babies? Probably enough for today. I shall let you get back to your lives. Tomorrow we'll cover anemones. There's not a huge amount of difference, but we'll chat about them anyway, and also cover any questions that come through.
There, look at those lovely stems. Nice and chunky. Beautiful.